Hello everyone and welcome back to the second part of string basics. In this video we'll be looking at methods and formatting, and let's get started. So what is methods? Well, in the previous video I briefly mentioned about how everything in Python is objects, right? So each object will come with a specific set of functions that you can apply with that type of objects. So, and those functions specific to those type of objects are called methods. Okay, so if there are a list of functions that are associated with string objects, then those functions are string methods. Okay, so we call a method, so those are specific functions related to the object type, okay, by calling the name of the object dot name of the method. Okay, so the typical syntax looks like this, and then you can pass in how many arguments it needs. Okay, and this is roughly equivalent to calling a function name with the object name and plus whatever the argument is needed to carry that out. Okay, if this doesn't make much sense to you, as we learn about some other objects in Python, it will make more sense as we go along. But to fully understand what object-oriented programming does, then take some of our software engineering units, then it will make much more sense. However, object-oriented programming is not part of this unit, so you don't have to worry about those concepts, but rather just learn how to use them. So let's have a look at some string methods. So here's a bunch of them, and as we learned a few videos back, where's my editor? There it is. You can always check what those mean, right? So using the help on string, by doing that, string is actually one of the largest objects that we can find. So it has a very comprehensive list of all the string methods. So initially those are some methods that you can use with some specialized operators. So here when you do string addition, so string A plus string B, essentially what's happening is calling the add function associated with string. But nevertheless, you don't have to worry about those. Okay, and there's a bunch of them, and once we get out of that, we have these string methods. So as you can see, there's actually a lot more than what's listed in the lecture notes, but the ones that are on the lecture notes are probably the ones that you will most likely to use. But again, do have a look and check what other string methods are available for you. Okay, and if you want to look at some specific help on the methods, you can always look up help string dot and then call in the method's name. So for example, let's do the lower, then it will just filter out the rest and find this specific method for you. So basically lower, you pass in some string inside, then returns a copy. No, you don't pass in anything. This means you don't pass in anything. Return a copy of the string as converted to lowercase. So let's just quickly check that. Name equals Jin, right? And then I have lower name equals name dot lower brackets. Don't forget the brackets. All methods are functions, hence we need brackets. Enter. So it didn't get any errors, so which means the output of name.lower has been saved onto lower name variable. So let's see what's inside lower name variable. And it contains Jin, but all the letters have been converted to lowercase. So we know that it's working correctly. Okay. If we want to look at one more example before we move along, so let's have a look at starts with. Actually, that's a Boolean, so let's not look at that. Let's look at find. So let's create a sentence. Sentence equals this is some long sentence. Okay, so now I have created, this is some long sentence. Okay, and then find, let's see what find does, right? So help string.find. Okay, and it says that I can create a I can search for substring inside a string, returns the lowest index. So the first occurrence from the left, it finds the substring, it will give me that index. Otherwise, -1 on failure. So let's just find something from our sentence. Okay. So index equals sentence dot find, and I do need to provide this substring that I want to find. So in this sentence, maybe I want to find a word sum. Okay, and then I don't want to give any parameters, they are optional. You can specify the start and end. Okay, so there's no error, which means it has executed okay. So let's check what's inside int. So this is value 8, which means I can find the word sum in my sentence at location index 8. And remember, index in Python starts from 0. So this t, 0, so let's count. 0, 1, 2, 3, space is also counted. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So from index 8, the word sum begins. So it managed to find it. Let's try to find something that we cannot find. Something, right? So this time, something does not exist in the sentence. So if we check the int, by definition, it should have returned me -1. And indeed, it did give me -1. Okay? So this is how we use methods associated with strings. So ever in doubt, look up the help, and then you can quickly use it. And if you do know specifically which method to use, but you just can't remember the name, you don't have to go through the full list of help. You can use the directory of string, for example. Directory of an object returns all the methods associated with the object without its descriptions. So here you can quickly just look through the names of the methods and find the one that you need to use. All right, so here is a example program to test string methods. Okay, so for example, what this program does is it takes the full name, the first and the last name, using the input, which we have seen in our previous video. And what it's going to do is use some of the string method, in particular split. Okay, so we're going to split the string onto 2 items because we have 2 items in the name. And then locate where the first name and last name is, and then finally reformat it to present it nice. We haven't covered any lists yet, but if you want to know about the list indexing and so forth, go and watch the next video, and then you can come back to here as well. Okay, but for now, let's assume that this is just the syntax that we'll use to access lists, right? So firstly, let's find out what split does. Okay, so help string split. Okay, so split does not require any input here. We don't have any input, and basically it returns a list of words in our string using sep as the delimiter string. So we need to define how we want to separate it if you want to separate it anything other than a space. So by default, it will use a space as a separator, but you can change that. And you'll find that this is useful later when we, for example, process CSV files, the comma separated files, which the delimiter has changed from space to comma. But we'll cover that very soon. All right, so now we understand what this split does. So let's create that as a program here. So full name equals input, enter your full name. Okay, and names equals fname dot split. Okay, we just want to split it by space, and we are assuming that the user will only type the first name and the last name, and there's no other. Okay, that is our assumption. Okay, so first name equals names at 0, and last name equals names at 1. Don't worry too much about the use of the lists. We'll cover that in the next video. Okay, and we assume that the input can have very different cases. So what we want to do is capitalize, which means it capitalizes the first letter and use the lowercase for the rest. Okay, corrected first name equals first name dot capitalize. Okay, yeah, Python uses US English, so do remember that. And then we're going to do the same for the last name. Last name to capitalize. Then we can finally print hi, and then corrected first name, corrected last name together. Okay, and we don't have to do anything else for that. So run this, and by running, it will run straight away. It's asking me for a full name. I put my full name, and then it says hi Jin Hong, but that was already nicely formatted. Let's try that again. Do note that if you submit codes like this into a quiz server, it will complain because it's not parent compliant. So yeah, you should put that into a function with the docstring and etc. But this is for demo. Okay, so let's try changing some formatting. JINHONG. Okay, so I can shuffle around the cases, but because we are using the capitalize method, it will automatically format that for me. Okay, so that hopefully makes some sense of how to use some string methods. Right, so next we are looking at formatting complicated outputs. Well, sometimes we need to deal with a bunch of different variables that stores different information of, say, string types, right? So maybe you have mixed informations about name, age, height, and so forth for a personal data, which are all saved onto different variables. So if we want to create a string combining all of them, the equation actually gets quite complicated. For example, it looks like this. S equals name plus name, height is plus height, and more variables we have, more messy this equation is going to be. So there we have two main problems with this. One is it's cumbersome. You need to type out lots of pluses, and you need to put instructions into the strings all the time, and you can't really control the number of output digits of float values. We want to make sure that when we print float values, we don't want to overload the text with a bunch of decimal points. Maybe we just want to round it up to 2 decimal places, something like that. Okay, so the format method of string achieves this much more easily. So format is a method of a string that allows you to pass in input parameters, and then it's going to map it onto inside a string that you create. So let's create this template. Get rid of this. Template equals name 0, height 1.2f. Okay, s equals template dot format name and height. Okay, so we need to also define name and height. Name equals James Bond. Height equals, oh no, height is a value, so 123.45678901234. So some long number. If we run this, and print s. It has been formatted nicely because what it does is place the name and height into appropriate locations specified in my template. Okay, so a template is like a form letter with some specific areas where user inputs can be placed on. Yeah. So compare this with the first example. You can try this yourself, but this will look much more messier because all of these digits will be displayed when you do that, and there's no way you can control the digits. So what do these curly brackets, the numbers, the colons, and the dots and F mean? Well, that's explained right here. So we have a few different arguments that goes into the string, and you can specify how you want to format this inside the curly brackets. So we have 4 components that you can format it with. The first one is the argument number, which means the location inside the format method. So here, the name is at index 0, height is at index 1, hence we placed 0 here and 1 here. If I want to print height first, I can simply just move this over here, over here, and leave name there, but it's not going to mix up name into height and height into name because we know the location of name and height here. So if we run this again and print s again, we will see the same values for the name and height, just the orders change around. So that's not a problem. And we can specify more options which are separated by column. So we add a column, and then after that you can specify the field width. This is the minimum character to produce when you print out the string. So let's do that. So I want my name to have at least 20 character width. Okay, so let's run this test. So now I have created a space, and this will be 20 characters long. This gives you an option to format the way it gets structured here nicely. So if I have variable length of names, it will still create this length of 20, so this comma will all align. So let's just quickly create a second string. Let's say name2 equals Gaburi. I can't spell names. Oh no. For another bond, right? So you can see obviously that this string is much longer than this one, and then we're going to create s2 equals template.format name2, and we just use the same height. Run it, and then let's print s, and then print s2. So here you can see that commas line up because that's the minimum width that we have specified, and then the string will fill out the space in there. What happens if your string is longer than the minimum characters that you specified? What it's going to do is just push back the remaining items in there. So let's just add like this, run it, print s, print s2. So here you can see that if it's more than the minimum characters, it's just going to push back the rest of the string behind. Okay. Right, so that's the field width. The next item is the number of digits after the decimal point. So the .f is how you put it together. So .pf is how you specify the decimal point. So although this is 2 separate informations, the f has to come with it to say that this is a fixed point, right? So we already have seen an example here, point 2f, indicating that this number, whatever comes in, will be formatted as 2 decimal places. So even if you don't have decimal places in the variable, if you do this, it will force it to have 2 decimal places when it's displayed. So if we print s again, here you can see the height has been changed to 123.00. Okay. And there are different options. So as you can see, I don't necessarily have to give all the options. Initially, I just had 0 to indicate just whatever it's inside at location 0, just put it there. So that's this option. You can do the width option, which I just shown you as an example, or just the float point formatting option, which is used in this one, or you can combine all of it. So here, before point, I can add, say, I want 20 characters of this width. Okay. Here we can see this, but it's going to add. Let's just add exclamation mark here. Run it. Print s. Huh? What have I done? Oh, no, that's right. Yeah. This is the 20 characters long, and by default, the numbers are aligned to the right. So, oh, I got scared just a little bit there. I was expecting spaces here. Anyway, so that's the formatting guideline, how to format strings in Python. So hopefully this is quite straightforward. So let's have a look at more formatting examples. All right. So we have first name Lucy, last name Languid, and then we have this float number 1.0 divided by 3.0, so that's the 1/3. So if we print 0, 1.format first name and last name, you would expect it to print Lucy Languid with space in the middle, correct? Right. So next one is print empty.format first name and last name. You would expect this to print. Yes, that's right. It's going to print exactly the same as before. So if you don't specify values inside the curly brackets, then by default, it will map out one item at a time into the string. So the first item will go into the first bracket, second item will go into the second bracket, and so forth. Okay. You cannot suddenly decide to put the location of items later on. So here, let's just do this. Nothing. Then we run this, print s, then it's going to put in the first item here and the second item there, but say we want to specify 0 here, then I'm going to get an error, because if I specified 0 on one of them, but the others are remaining empty, then program doesn't know exactly what to put there. Okay, it's not that smart. So you have to either specify them all or leave them all empty. Then it's going to not complain. But the same idea is that even if you specify the first one, if you leave the remaining empty, it still doesn't know what it's doing. So either leave them all empty or populate the location for all of them. Okay, otherwise you'll get this error. Moving on, 1/3 to 4 decimal places is 0.4f. So we have seen that 0.4f will format it to 4 decimal places. So let's just try that quickly. 2/3 equals 2 divided by 3. Okay, so that's 0.6666. So let's format it. Okay, print 4 decimal places, 0.4f dot format t3rd, enter. What? Oh, sorry, I forgot the column. There we go. So interestingly, if you format things, it will do the rounding for you. Aha! Isn't that fascinating, right? So keep that in mind as well. Okay, next one, print n square root, and then we're going to do formatting with the width. This is a loop which we haven't covered yet, but we will be covering this in about I don't know, about maybe 5 videos later. So keep tuned, but you can just test this and see what it prints out, because it shows you how the formatting works. So this one says, I want this to be at least 3 characters long, minimum 3 characters. And the next one, it wants it to be at least 10 characters long with 5 decimal points. So what's it going to do is align all the numbers to the right hand side and then start expanding 10 characters long. If it's longer than that, it's just going to push it back, but because it has been formatted to 5 decimal points, it's going to have maybe about 7, 8 characters long in this square root that goes up to 100. All right. So all objects have methods, right? So we are revisiting methods here. The object type determines the set of methods, okay? And even ints and floats have methods as well. So before we checked by help string, this show me all the methods associated with help. You can do the same with ints and floats. Help int, and you can see that there's a bunch of, well, not that many, but there are some methods available for int, and similar idea for floats. Okay, one of the most important methods are the ones that start with the double underscores, right? So these are the methods that are used internally by the Python engine. So for example, if I and j are ints, we can use I.add j, which is exactly equivalent to I plus j. Okay, so let's say I equals 1, j equals 1. I can call I dot underscore underscore add underscore underscore j. Okay, gives me 2 because I plus j is essentially calling the add function, add method associated with int object. Okay, so that's the slight difference. Well, there's not a difference. That's essentially what's happening in Python engine. When you do the plus sign, it's actually calling the add method associated with an int object. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense compared to when I was describing it earlier. Okay. And finding the available methods I have quickly shown you before, but this is the summary slide. So basically you can create something, so s equals blah. And then I can look at help s. Oh, actually, you have to look up the type in new Python, possibly. So let's go help string, because we know that s is type string. This shows the help string. There works? Yes, wonderful. So directory of s is a string object, and it quickly shows you what kind of methods you can access. And of course, these are the built-in Python methods. You can see the add here. So remember, string can be added together, and therefore it's listed here. Okay. And if you want to look at some specific help on specific methods, you can type in help s dot what we have is space, something like this, and then it's going to show you the description of that particular method. And there's a few other ways of calling the help as well. All right, so that concludes the basic introduction to strings, and essentially a mixture use of the string methods, operations, and so forth. You'll be able to do quite a lot of things in Python from now. But another important item is lists, which we will cover in the next video. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.